and gentlemen, it's Eric Coffin of HRA Advisories. I'm in Vancouver today, June 27th. I'm here with Doug Ramshaa, who is the president of Minera Alamos. And the reason I'm talking to Doug today, we had a meeting today, is he put out a pretty significant news release this morning. Do you want to fill the audience in on what that was, and then we'll talk about the importance of it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first mine we have planned is Santana, and we've been going through the permitting process with the old government and then the new government that came in at the beginning of the year, with a goal of having this first step of the permitting process concluded by the end of June, and we did it with a couple of days to spare. It's always the best guesstimate when you're working with anyone, and we're happy to be collaborating both with the state and federal government there. And this was the technical sign-off on the gold mine that we have planned at Santana, and a key step of the federal permitting. So at this point, we're looking at a few minor stages that take place over what will be the rainy season down there before full issuance. So big de-risking step. Yeah,
this was the permit you got today from Semirnat. It's basically the change of land use, and that is the big permit. Mm-hmm. Most of the other ones, water, explosives, construction permits are generally, I think most of them are state granted, and they're basically pretty much automatic after you get this done. And I said to subscribers in an alert I sent this morning that I was impressed that this happened in almost exactly a year, because that is the timing in Mexico. I mean, Mexico's, for reasons I don't understand personally, has gotten a bad rap about permitting, and I don't know why, because any company I've followed has had a lot of trouble. But I had some concerns simply because there was that recent election, and it's not a big secret that in Mexico and a lot of other Latin American countries, when it's an election year, the bureaucracy just basically disappears and doesn't do anything for a few months. I was actually impressed you got it in a year. Now, having that permit, it's obviously this starts the clock in terms of Santana being built, but I think the other thing it does is it frees you up to do some exploration that you guys have wanted to do, but you didn't really want to mess around with anything while that permitting was going on.
Yeah, we chose a more cautious approach on that. We did, back at the beginning of the year, announce what our plans were going to be for this year. We have 10,000 meters planned. We own our own drill rig. It's waiting on site to go, and we'll start getting some holes drilled, and potentially on some of the new discoveries we made last year, and then also around Nietzsche, which has still not been drilled out fully, its limits, and then the rest will conclude at the end of the rainy season in the back half of the year.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's interesting about Minera is it's a development stage company. They are building these mines themselves. They're not looking for a takeover. I started following it recently in the newsletter because I think they've got a really nice runway here with these two very low-cost mines that they will build sequentially, get their production rate up to 100,000 ounces plus over the space of 2 or 3 years. But what's interesting with Minera is because of the size and the market cap that you've got now, you're still in that space where a new discovery or a set of really strong drill holes that show something new's got real scale potential, I think can have a really big impact. So I would think some of your shareholders that bought it as a producer in waiting, a lot of them might sort of go, drill holes, who cares? But I can see there's actually a lot of speculative appeal to that program. I mean, the one target that I really liked that you had a discovery hole in last year is Divisadero. Do you want to give us like a 30-second sketch on that target?
Yeah, I mean, we did a 10-hole program last year, and most of those holes were put out in October of last year at a time when no one cared. And I think one of the first things I'd say to anyone is go back and look at those releases. You'll see holes where we're twice the grade of the Great Basin, pretty much from surface, and making new discoveries. Divisadero was more of a porphyritic potential source target. We just clipped it with one hole, and then we didn't drill anymore after that, and we hit 95 meters of almost 1.5 grams gold equivalent.
It's a really nice hole.
Yeah.
And I had a phone meeting a couple of weeks ago, just before I actually added it to the newsletter, with Doug and with Darren Connigan, the CEO of the company, and Darren's sort of more the property property side guy, and he made what I thought was a very interesting observation. I knew this project Santana from back in the day. For a brief period, I followed the company that you were CEO of before it merged with Minera. And it was always an interesting property, but it was one of those ones where it didn't look like it necessarily had a really big target on it, but what it does have is several breccia pipes, breccia zones, whatever they are. And Darren made the comment during that conversation that, yeah, we've looked at a lot of this stuff, and we see 2 or 3 mineralogical things in it, namely the main one being specularite, which is an iron oxide, and it's called specularite because it's very obvious and spectacular in the wild, if you will. And I guess most of this property really hasn't been mapped. And he mentioned that you've had guys out, and you're already starting to see a lot more breccia, a lot more specularite in stuff that's never been sampled, never been drilled. I mean, it sounds like there's actually a lot of target on Santana.
Yeah, I mean, the bulk of the 30,000 meters of historical drilling was around the main nicho pipe, which is good because we want that to be a robust resource for putting into production. But yeah, now we think we've identified 4 or 5 more of these pipes. Now, some might be in the order of, we think they all scale in terms of their potential between 100,000 ounces on the low end and 400,000 to 500,000 ounces on the high end. So whilst we might not have a singular pit that can command 1.5 million ounce plus potential, which we want to see in all our projects, we think that a series of these discrete pits to a central leaching facility, because they're all within a few kilometers of each other, makes a lot of sense and will allow us to expand that production profile.
And I guess as you just got this permit. I mean, we'll see a finance package here fairly soon. It's very low capex anyway. Santana is relatively scalable. I mean, it's a heap leach project, so in theory, at least, it shouldn't be that difficult to go from the 30,000 odd ounces a year that you're talking about up to 50 or whatever.
Oh, yeah. That's and on the finance package, yeah, we can try to stress, we're not looking at equity in terms of the capex on. We did a $5 million equity raise largely with institutions at the beginning of the year, but our relationship with our partners, I think most people can see the relationship there is for one primary source of funding, and that's what we'll do on a non-equity perspective. Santana, we'd started around 30,000 ounces a year. Darren feels we can move that up to 50 pretty quickly, and we now think that Santana as a project can scale higher than that. We'll be demonstrating that potential both with the drilling we do this year and then a lot of drilling as we start cash flowing. A lot of that cash will be deployed back into drilling the property.
Okay. There you have it, Minera Alamos, MAI on the venture. It's a great looking deal. I know management well. I'm very, very comfortable they can execute. And this is one of those situations where for this to work, it's really all about execution, building these low capex operations, making sure they work, generating cash flow, then building the next one, the next one, the next one. So to me, it's got a nice runway, relatively low downside because of the way that they're doing things in a small, scalable manner. But at the same time, I think it actually has a lot of exploration potential. And as someone that followed this project in the past, I'm actually quite excited to see how this drilling you're about to start is going to work out on a bunch of targets that were sort of maybe known but never drilled before. Yeah. So I think it's got a really good 1-2 punch, and you should take a look. That's it for today.